Hey, Bastish B here for 64K and welcome to the second episode of my new series. And welcome back, and on today's episode I'm going to have a look at DC Comics and all the video games with their characters that came out on the Commodore 64. But before we do that, let's take a brief look at DC Comics' history. DC Comics is an American comic book publisher founded in 1934. The DC stands for Detective Comics, which was to usher in Batman's debut in 1939. A year before that, though, was the debut of another iconic character from DC, which was Superman in 1938, and so ushered in what was to be known as the superhero comics. Over the next few decades, DC would create the likes of The Flash, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Teen Titans, the Justice League, and countless other teams and characters. DC is also home to one of the most impressive rogue galleries in modern media, with Lex Luthor, the Joker, Deathstroke, Darkseid, Catwoman being almost as iconic as some of the main characters. They also published a lot of fringe titles such as V for Vendetta, Watchmen, and Preacher on their adult Vertigo label, which I'd highly recommend checking out. In 1989, DC was bought and merged into a division of Warner Brothers, which saw the release of the 1989 Tim Burton Batman movie, which proved a massive hit at the time and helped revitalize the comic book industry in the early 90s and sent it to an all-time high. In 2011, DC rebooted its entire universe after the events in the Flash storyline Flashpoint. They called the reboot the New 52, and every character and storyline got a fresh start, which was a way to lure in new readers into the universe without the need for decades worth of baggage and backstory. DC is currently the second biggest comic book publisher in the world. So when I think back to my 80s gaming heyday on the Commodore 64, I seem to remember I played a lot of games based on DC characters. When in fact, I didn't really. I was trying to rack my brain to think of all the games I played with, like, Batman, Superman, and anything in the DC universe, and I could only come up with 3 games, and then I checked online and there were 4. There was one I didn't play, which I knew about. It's kind of amazing to me that out of a library of over 10,000 games that there's only 4 DC games based on their characters, which is kind of crazy. If you saw the previous episode, I looked at 2000 AD. The good thing about this is that although there's only 4, the quality is definitely much higher than 2000 AD games. And on that note, let's start looking at these games. Okay, so the 4 games we're going to have a look at today are Superman the game, Superman the Man of Steel, Batman the Caped Crusader, and Batman the movie. So let's start at the beginning. Superman the game was released in 1985 by First Star Software, the guys who made the Boulder Dash series and the Spy vs. Spy series. But before we start looking at the game, let's take a brief look at Superman himself. He was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster and made his first appearance in Action Comics #1, published in 1938. Although he wasn't the first superhero comic or character, he pretty much defined all the conventions and cliches that we know today in any standard superhero comic. Superman is an alien from the planet Krypton. His parents sent him off to Earth to save him before their planet exploded. He was found and adopted by the Kents, who were residents of Smallville, USA. They named him Clark. An unexpected product of being Kryptonian gave him extraordinary powers on Earth, as Earth's sun actively charges him, giving him special abilities like super strength, flight, heat vision, and many more. He works at the Daily Planet in Metropolis and plays the mild-mannered Clark Kent by day, but secretly he is Earth's defender, Superman, a secret he keeps to protect his friends and family. And now back to our first Superman game. And just like a lot of First Star Software games, this is one that is played much better as a 2-player experience, although it's still good in single player. In the 2-player mode, you can choose between Superman, who is trying to save Metropolis and its citizens, or Darkseid, who is trying to destroy Metropolis and lure all the citizens to his lair. Overall, there are 6 levels, 3 in Metropolis and 3 underground, and the game sports a whole bunch of fun mini-games to break up the gameplay. The bulk of the game has you trying to divert the citizens to your safe area by opening these gates and directing them lemming style to your side, all the while fighting your opponent, Darkseid. The mini-games pop up between levels and range from fighting a kryptonite spewing cannon, being chased by Darkseid through his lair, using your super breath to blow back these rockets into Darkseid's massive cannon weapon. These sequences are really fun and I like them a lot. They all require a new strategy to beat and are done quite well. The graphics are also pretty good. First Star were always pretty handy visually, and they do well in capturing Superman. The intro music though is pretty damn awful, and the sound effects are barely there, but at least they're not terrible. Overall, I think it's a good game. It's not gonna blow you away or anything, but it's fun, especially in 2-player mode, and it's worth checking out for any Superman fan. Okay, we're gonna fly out next to 1988 to check out the second Superman game called Superman Man of Steel by Tynesoft, who I feel were a pretty underrated games publisher back then. I enjoyed a lot of their multi-event games like Summer and Winter Olympiad and Buffalo Bill's Wild West Show, all highly recommended to check out. The story for this game again involves Darkseid, who has hijacked a Star Lab satellite and is causing havoc with Earth's weather, causing floods and earthquakes. And it's up to Superman to stop him. The game has 5 stages with 3 different gameplay changes. You get the Space Harrier type 3D flight sequence, which is pretty well done. You get a top-down vertical shooter or puncher stage where you have to protect a space shuttle or a satellite from meteor showers. There's also the side-scrolling run and gun type level where you have to blast all these robots. In between all these levels though are these really neat comic book panels which tell the story, and I really like them, and they are presented well. Visually, this game is very good. Colorful, well animated. The gameplay is quite fun. I really like games that switch up the gameplay styles between levels. It keeps things pretty interesting. The music is also quite good, with a pretty decent interpretation of John Williams' Superman theme in the intro. The only negative is that this game is really easy. Even if you put it on the harder difficulties, it's pretty hard to die, which I'll give them that. It's pretty accurate to the comic book. But as a game, it's just too damn easy. I mean, I finished it on my first go without cheats, and this is the first time I've ever played this game. This is the only game on this list that I never played back in the day, so this was my first time playing it. As a Superman game, it's still quite well done. I'd still recommend checking it out, even though it's going to be a really short play. Also in 1988 saw the release of Ocean Software's second of 3 Batman games. The first 1986 Batman game never got a C64 conversion, unfortunately. But before that, let's take a quick look at some info about the character himself. Batman made his debut in Detective Comics number 27 in 1939, 1 year after Superman's debut. He was created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger, and was an immediate success, and got his own comic book series the following year titled Batman. Batman's real identity is that of billionaire Bruce Wayne, whose parents were brutally killed in front of him as a kid, which led Bruce as an adult to don the cape and cowl and take to the streets to bring justice to the decaying streets of Gotham City. And now back to 1988's Batman, the Caped Crusader by Special Effects, the guys who made the excellent Untouchables game and the brilliant arcade conversion of Midnight Resistance, and all these games were published by Ocean. The first thing you notice about this game is the cool presentation, and that each screen you walk into is like a panel from a comic book with a different size and shape, and as you exit it, it fades like it's turning a page. I really like it. As a game, it's a puzzle adventure game with light beat 'em up action elements. It definitely focuses more on Batman as a detective as opposed to him as a vigilante. Finding items and solving puzzles is the name of the game, and it's quite satisfying, and the items are pretty logical, so it's not like one of those games where you think, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? The action element is not as good though. You pretty much just stun everything so you can get to the next screen to use or find more items to progress the case. And speaking of cases, there are 2 in this game, a Bird in the Hand featuring the Penguin, and a Fate Worse Than Death featuring the Joker. Both have their own sets of puzzles and maps to explore. Visually, it's quite good. I love the menu system and the way the bat sign flies at the screen, just like the old Adam West Batman 66 show. Music is decent, but pretty forgettable, and the gameplay is mixed with puzzle solving side being pretty good, but the action feels a bit clunky and unsatisfying. It's still an interesting game. I feel it was a bit overrated back in the day, but it's still well worth checking out for Batman fans. And that leads us to the last of the C64 DC games, that being 1989's Batman the Movie.
and thankfully they saved the best for last. The movie part in the title is referring to Tim Burton's first Batman movie for Warner Brothers, starring Michael Keaton as Batman and Jack Nicholson as the Joker, which was a monster hit at the time and pretty much like the original Superman comic. This movie became the blueprint onto how to make a comic book style movie. As for the game, it follows all the major action set pieces in the film and has 5 levels in total with 3 different gameplay styles, and is definitely one of Ocean's best movie license games. You got the side-scrolling action stages where you use batarangs to take out henchmen and the bat hook to get around the level. The driving and flying sequences are side-scrolling affair where you get to drive the Batmobile and the Batwing respectively. And the third gameplay style is a puzzle-solving minigame involving you trying to find an antidote to the Joker's deadly laughing gas. The gameplay is really good in all the changes, and I especially like the driving and flying stages the most, which feel really good. The graphics are again quite excellent, and the quality is kept up right to the end with detailed sprites and fast-moving driving sequences. Out of all these DC games, this one has an absolutely rocking soundtrack by Matthew Cannon. I especially love the title and driving music. Check out more of Matthew's cool soundtracks in Ocean games such as Navy SEALs, The Untouchables, and Nightbreed. Overall, this, in my opinion, is definitely the best of the DC games and is a must-play on the C64. And it's also worth checking out the awesome Amiga version as well for a slightly different experience.
So overall, I think the DC games come out pretty well. I think for the most part they managed to capture the essence and even the look of the comic books quite well. All 4 games. I would definitely say that Batman the movie though is the one that you definitely should play, like 100%. The other ones are all pretty good. Okay, thanks for joining me again, Bastish B at 64K. I hope you had a good time and enjoyed the show. If you can like and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.